Welcome to Inside the Arena, your source for everything off the ice, off the court, and outside the field of play. With your hosts, KOMO Sports Director Niko Tamurian and KOMO Senior Reporter Chris Daniels.
Hey, Beth Knox may not be in the room this week, but everybody's still outside.
Yeah.
The big studio here at KOMO.
I count like 7 people that are looking at her.
Yeah, and they're all cheering.
Absolutely. There's our boss. He's
That is.
I mean, he really is right there. But
that is actual, not real applause, but we'll take it.
How are you?
I'm fine. We are at episode number 25 of Inside the Arena.
The silver anniversary.
Yeah, well, you know, if my math still serves me, we are almost at a half a year of doing this on a weekly basis.
Yeah, and what a ride it's been. What a joy it's been. Think about all the guests that we brought on, and in some cases, news that we've broken, and certainly behind the scenes information that we brought. And I'm biased, but this is the only place you can get that kind of information. I love the dynamic we've been able to bring the audience.
Yeah, it's everything off the ice, off the court, off the field, off the pitch, as they like to say over in Europe, and the field of play. And really what we're talking about this week with an extended conversation is one that you had with how do we spell his name? Julio Rodriguez.
What a great guy. And I'll give a little bit of background on this, and we'll bring you the full conversation in a couple minutes. It's been a real joy for me to cover Julio. My first full season covering the Mariners was his first full season here. I know that wasn't that long ago, but I've only been here about 3.5 years. That said, every time I get to talk to him, it is just an absolute pleasure. And as you'll see in this conversation, we've had some cool moments during the All-Star week last year. My son was only 18 months, and my wife's walking him by in the stroller, and he looks and sees the poster of Julio outside T-Mobile Park, and he's just staring at it because he wasn't really talking at that point yet. And he's just staring at it. And I showed Julio that picture the next day. In the back of my mind, thinking he's 22. When I was 22, I would have just said, "Oh, cool," and moved on. But he was really taken by it, really enjoyed it. It was really cool. So then, flash forward to this conversation about a year and a half later, we were talking about my son now he's 3 and goes to preschool and wears a Julio jersey to preschool on occasion, and it's the only one he wants to wear. And Julio he's a great guy is what I'm trying to say. He was really taken by that whole thing as well. And when you consider the talent that he is, the fact that he's a great guy off the field, the fact that he's doing all this charity work that we're going to talk about in a few minutes, both here in Seattle and in his childhood home with the Dominican Republic, is just fantastic. So that's why this conversation next is special, because Julio Rodriguez, not only the real deal on the field, but even more so off the field. And what a great representative of Seattle sports.
But first, what we do every week, Niko, we like to touch them all. It is 4 corners, what's good, what's bad, going on off the court, off the field, off the ice.
Yeah,
what do you like?
Well, listen, when we talk about a hockey season, it's only November, right? Like, there's such a long way to go. So we're not going to talk results, although it's been cool to see the Kraken winning lately. However, what I'd like to point out about those wins is the place has been packed, and it's had a great energy about it. And you and I have talked about it on this show when it comes to the Kraken this season being pivotal, okay, from the standpoint of ticket sales after a tough 2023-24 season, things of that sort, the way that they're winning. And obviously that's important in the X's and O's, clearly. It's the whole point of sports. But it's even more important because it's putting more butts in the seats. It's selling more tickets. And I talked to Jared McCann today. He's like, listen, it's not a coincidence we came home and suddenly rolled off 4 in a row. There's a real energy about that place this year. And you love to see it at a time, arguably, outside of the first week of the franchise, that the team needed it the most, right?
Yeah.
Because you couldn't afford to have such a slow start like we saw last year that it was just impossible to climb out of. You stave that off, you re-energize the fan base, at least for now. Who knows how it's going to go? But that was really crucial that they got the wins they needed, and in turn, got the atmosphere going, made a little money, and hopefully that's just the way it goes the rest of the year. But it had to start somewhere, and it looks like it started here now in November.
Well, they had the back-to-back nights with the New York teams, the Islanders and the Rangers, and I can attest that for that Rangers game, there was a different energy in the building. That's what happens when you win a few games in a row and you get a hot goalie in Joey Decourt. I think there is going to be a goalie story that may be developing here as the season rolls on. But they definitely had a good stretch, a good home stretch there at Climate Pledge Arena. And you know what's right next to Climate Pledge Arena?
A lot of things.
Seattle Center.
Seattle Center.
I mean, it is part of Seattle Center. There was positive news off the pitch with the World Cup planning in 2026. I think you're going to hear more and more about that big event that has been likened to the World's Fair in 1962. Seattle Center is a part of this. Lumen Field's a part of it. And really the region is going to be a part of this. And the organizing committee made an announcement, a labor agreement with the MLK Labor Council to have union employees staff the big fan fest at the Seattle Center. We have talked about this on this show. 1 month event that organizers say will bring 30,000 people a day from around the world to Seattle Center with big screens. So there's going to be union employees working that. This may not sound like a lot, but we have seen this before with other stadium projects. We saw it with Climate Pledge Arena. This is a big deal in terms of guaranteeing that union employees will be there. Here's Katie Garrow from MLK Labor.
We're here today to celebrate an agreement that MLK Labor, the local organizing committee, and more than a dozen local unions reached. This agreement will apply to the World Cup Fan Fest to be held here on the Seattle Center campus.
So that's Katie Garrow from MLK Labor as part of that announcement. Dow Constantine, the King County executive, was there as well. Peter Tomazawa, what I like to call a friend of the show of Inside the Arena. He was there as well, and that is one of those announcements that you will hear as time goes on. Yeah. All good.
How amazing is that going to be? I can't wait. Listen, just having the World Cup here is going to be obviously like off the charts, but seeing this whole place, Seattle Center, turn into a party is going to be pretty cool too.
And by the way, shameless plug, if you were listening or viewing us last week on all our different platforms, you would have heard Beth Knox from the Seattle Sports Commission say it was kind of a bonus World Cup that they got the FIFA Club World Cup in 2025. So not going to be as big, she says, as the World Cup in 2026, but still going to be a big deal and a nice test run for the city.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what don't you like?
Yeah. Okay. So I've got one thing I want to talk about, and it's piggybacking off what I said last week. If you remember, I'm not going to rant like I did last week, but I ranted about the format of the MLS Cup playoffs, where you start with a best of three, and then when the games get more important with more on the line, you suddenly shrink back to winner take all one games. And there's a certain excitement to that, no question about it, but it's kind of the opposite of every other sport. There's one other point I want to add to that, and that's my negative. I can't wait to see the Sounders and LAFC in the conference semifinals this Saturday. However, it will have been 3 weeks since the Sounders last played. They beat Houston to win that first round series November 3rd. They will not see LAFC until the 23rd, Saturday. And like, again, that just speaks to the, I was going to say something mean. It speaks to the point not making
but
much
you're not
sense.
A mean guy.
No. So, I mean, if I'm in traffic, maybe, but it just speaks to how, like, it doesn't make as much sense. Like, maybe start with one game, and then as the playoffs get further, I'm not saying in soccer, given the way the sport is played, you have to do best of 5 or something. Of course not. But maybe you start with one game in the first round. Like you see every other sport progress in that way. And getting off my soccer rant for a minute, while we are so incredibly happy for the great Dave Sims going to the New York Yankees, and I know that's a dream job. I grew up watching him on the old Big East games back in the day, and the first time I talked to him when I got to Seattle, I was like, oh, I grew up watching you call Syracuse football games, and he went right into the Donovan McNabb, 3rd and 17, in that beautiful Dave Sims voice. So while we are so happy for him, I dislike that we don't get to listen to him in Seattle anymore, but it'll be cool to see him when the Yankees come to town next year. So happy for you, Dave Sims. That's not a negative, except that we don't get to hear you anymore in Seattle.
Hey, now.
Oh, the Cal Raleigh home run call?
Yes.
Cal Raleigh said his family played that so much that when he would walk in the room, they'd imitate Dave Sims going, the 3-2 from Acevedo, and they would just say that when Cal walked in the room.
That one of the best moments and two of the best calls, that particular moment in time for the Mariners in years.
Oh,
it will be repeated for years. Dave Sims' voice will be echoing through T-Mobile Park. Okay. On a serious note, one thing that we don't like to talk about, but this is not good, and it concerns off the court issues in the Seattle Storms. We don't know all the details here regarding the Seattle Storm, but you don't necessarily want to be the headline on a story in the Chicago Sun-Times that Seattle's coaching staff is now under investigation for alleged player harassment and bullying related to on-court performance and incidents during practice and games. There have been multiple reports since that Seattle, as a franchise, has hired a law firm now to look into those accusations of harassment and bullying by the coaches regarding player performance. Again, multiple reports on this. This is all happening in the off season. It's not one of those things that you want to navigate as a front office, but it's there, especially with free agency and several players' futures up in the air right now. Not necessarily something you want to have to deal with.
The one, yeah, you hit the nail on the head. You never want to have that kind of allegation, true or untrue, surrounding your franchise. However, one thing that's thrown me for a loop on this, and I suspect it'll become clear in time, is that, Nneka Ogwumike, who is one of the Storm stars, who is the head of the Players Association, she was on a podcast just maybe 3 or 4 days, I'm paraphrasing on that part, but just a few days before this news broke, praising the coaching staff of the Storm, praising the atmosphere of the Storm. And I understand that players may have different experiences. You may love it on the Storm, I may hate it on the Storm, right? But as somebody who's leading the Players Association, that it carries a different weight. Like, maybe she would have known, or she would have treaded differently, having obviously been at those practices, and if something like that was seen, right?
Yeah.
So again, there's so much we don't know that it's kind of a fool's errand to speculate. But that one aspect of the story is standing out to me right now, is at least in this point in time, with the limited to no information that we have, kind of strikes me as like, well, why was that, right? And we'll I'm sure we'll find out. But
and we'll put the breadcrumbs together on this at a later date. But it's interesting. This came out of Chicago as opposed to Seattle. We haven't seen any sort of filing or anything regarding that here. So there's a lot to wait and see on that. But obviously, when we're talking about what's good and bad in the world of sports off the court, that is not something you necessarily want to be associated with. Let's talk about something a little bit more pleasant, shall we? Because there is news. There is news. Wait, there we go. There we go. The buzzer. The buzzer.
The breaking news buzzer.
Here we go. How about that? How about the air horn, Bill? The air horn still works when we're talking about. When we're talking
Bill's
about
a hell of a pickleball player.
Oh, he is. I've heard. And no ACLs have been torn. And that'll be something we talk about in the future with the Supersonics. How about that for a segue? The Supersonic Minute, something we do every week as we chart this course to potential NBA expansion. We have talked about this at length on this show about the timeline. At first, Adam Silver said one thing, then there was another. And a lot of this has been connected to the TV digital rights deal. We have chronicled it all on Inside the Arena. And there was news this week. The Wall Street Journal first to report, and it's been reported by several outlets, that Warner Brothers Discovery and the NBA have settled a lawsuit over the TV digital rights deal. And we will explain how this is all connected in a second. Gets a little into the weeds here, but TNT's parent company was challenging the recent deal that the NBA made with ESPN, Amazon, and NBC. Took him to court, saying they had matching rights. But this is now a legal settlement that does a few things. TNT will license out Inside the NBA with Charles Barkley and that whole gang to ESPN and ABC. So they'll be seen on KOMO. TNT will produce that. Warner Brothers and TNT gets highlights for Bleacher Report and its social media platform House of Highlights for 11 years. So not only that, Warner Brothers also gets access to NBA live game rights in Nordic countries, Poland, Latin America, Brazil, and Mexico. That's no small thing. And allegedly, some Big 12 football games part of this trade, which is not insignificant. And we can talk about this at a later date, Niko, as it fits into another discussion about Pac-12 media rights. If Big 12 is going to be on TNT and whether Warner Brothers Discovery could be a player in getting Pac-12 media rights. But this was all, it's a long way of saying this was a hang-up in the Supersonic expansion story, because you and I both heard this from Adam Silver, the NBA commissioner, months ago. Once they got their TV digital rights deal done, they would turn to expansion. Then it was going to be in the fall. They were going to turn to expansion. Then now it's changed to this season, which kind of extends the timeline a bit, saying in September. To me, at a press conference,
I was just going to say to you directly,
they're not quite there yet. So this was one of those things that we call the variable on one of the earlier shows, right? That there was this legal issue that was kind of hanging out over the NBA, and once they get this done, they could then turn to expansion. But it still seems like what I heard on the ground in New York, what we have talked about on this show as well, that it appears we're waiting on the sale of the Boston Celtics to establish the valuation before the league talks formally about what the price would be for expansion. At least that's how it looks at this very moment.
Yeah, and the line I always say when we talk about this, we've had to wait 16 years. What's a few more months? But yeah, it's nice to have that hurdle out of the way. Selfishly, it's nice to have inside the NBA on KOMO, potentially, at times. But
inside the arena maybe could set up inside
I was just going to, I almost said it inside the arena there. But yeah, like, to have it be kind of, at least on the surface, down to one hurdle before we start getting into the expansion, which you and I will just be having a blast with every week once we get to that committee officially formed step and all that. To know that there's essentially, hopefully, one hurdle between right this moment and that excitement. It's a good feeling. And boy, I know we're all cautiously optimistic, but it's nice to be one step closer.
Well, the great thing is, Niko, we have the ability on this show to talk about this and getting in the weeds on this stuff. I don't think a lot of people understand just all the layers and levels that go into the NBA, and how I think careful Adam Silver has been with his words. He hasn't led anybody astray. He's maybe changed the timeline, but he has talked about this NBA TV digital rights deal being a big deal, and it looks like now they won't have to go into a prolonged lawsuit that may drag it out even more, but it likely has been a variable that has extended the timeline, at least for the expansion discussion.
That's just it. The timelines had to change because of external events, pending litigation, sale of one of your premier franchises, that sort of thing. But to your point, he has stuck to the course, and it's just been refreshing, because you don't always see that in every single league. And my goodness, we're closer, and just hang on a little bit. I know fans can get a little impatient, and understandably so. It's been a long time, but just hang on a little bit.
So, it's odd to think sometimes is, you cover these guys on at the stadiums and the arenas all the time, and guys like Julio were like 6 when the Sonics left Seattle.
He was born in 2000, so 8, but he was probably 6 when you started reporting on it.
Wait. Yeah.
How did you know that button was going to do that? I've never heard that on this show.
Oh, well, hey, there's something new every day. Yeah, God, he was born in 2000.
December of 2000.
8 years old.
Yeah. So technically probably 7, because he's born in December of 2000. So, but yeah, and it just goes to show, all these guys want the NBA back too. We're talking Mariners players, Kraken players, obviously Seahawks, and we see all those guys show up to the NBA exhibition games. Remember, we saw like JP Crawford there. We saw Sounders players, Kraken guys. And it speaks to the sports community we have here. When you talk about the sports community we have here, you have a guy that is like the superstar of superstars. Arguably, I would say the biggest star, so to speak, in Seattle sports right now, given his talent, his results on the field, and appeal outside of Seattle. Yet here he is, his off season. And baseball's a long season, man. We talk about that, 162 games. He could be doing whatever he wants with that huge contract that he earned. Yet he's coming back to Burien, and he's collecting toys and sports equipment and gear for kids in need here in Seattle and for kids in the Dominican Republic. It's the No Limits Foundation. Julio started it. And the point he makes, and you'll hear a little bit about this in a second, is that he wants kids to have the opportunity he did. And it was tough for kids and when he was growing up in the DR to have these opportunities. And so he takes his success and the level that he's achieved to say, okay, I'm going to solve this problem, or at least do my best to do that. And I think that's a class act of a guy. So here's my conversation with the great Julio Rodriguez. This was just pretty recently, talking about all he's doing in the community. Julio Rodriguez, first of all, it's good to see you again, man. Always good to see you, sir. Look at all this, right? What does it mean to the people of Seattle? They know what your foundation does, and they wanted to help out in this way.
It means the world, to know that, they're so open and willing to support, support this cause, support a lot of people in need that this is going to get to, and, just to see how much, if we get together, how much we can impact, like, other people's lives that are in need.
for Mariners fans that are watching this and may not know everything, because your foundation does do a lot, take me through what it does, the idea that you wanted to start with, and how it does help kids. You really want to get into the game and everything.
Yeah, I mean, like, I feel like everything is started, where I come from. I come from Loma de Cabrera. It's a place where we don't have all this. We don't have the access to a lot of equipment. So, and like, I feel like me knowing that and like kind of have to go through that, I feel like it's what motivated me to kind of give back to the people in sport and like help out different causes, here in Seattle too. And like, let's say with this cause right now, like we're gonna be able to give so many different toys and baseball equipment to different people in needs. We're gonna be able to, let's say, my hometown right now, we're rebuilding La Casa de la Cultura. That we're gonna do another event where we're gonna be gifting a lot of this baseball equipment, a lot of these toys. So it's something that I'm just like looking for the future and like all the people that we can impact, because there's so many people in need, and I feel like me being in the position that I am, to be able to give back, I feel like that's huge for me, because I'm blessed. I'm grateful for all the opportunities I've had, but at the same time, I understand that there are people that also are in need, that people that I can reach my hand to, and I feel like that's something that I would do. That's
what I wanted to ask you next. You're just doing what you love. Yeah. What does it mean to you that playing baseball gives you this platform, this opportunity to help so many?
I mean, it's awesome. It's awesome, man. That's something that I'm so grateful to. When I set out to play baseball, I was just doing the game I love, and I feel like going through the time, I'm in the position where now I can give back. Now I can help other people achieve their dreams, and whatever that might be. If it's baseball, if it's arts, if it's whatever it is that I can support somebody, I feel like I will do my best to be there, and like that's something that it makes me really happy, and that's something that aligns with who I am.
Absolutely. How are you doing this off season? How are you? It's a grind for you guys. How are you feeling right now?
Oh, I'm feeling great. Obviously, we always have to take some time off and everything like that, and like try to take a little bit of slow, sometime with the family and friends. But we can never stay too far away from baseball. So training a little bit here and there, and looking forward for next year.
That's just it. How much does that motivate you to get out there and get where you want to be and everything like that?
Yeah, no, so much. And like just also seeing the love that the city is showing me, it also motivated me even more, to be in top shape, to be doing the best that I can on the field, because I just know that, we're all together in this, just like kind of how we're having a great cause all together here, and just kind of motivates me to show up even more for them.
Yeah, that's just it too. We talked about, what do you try to do at this point in the year to get ready for a season like that?
I mean, just, get my body and mind in top shape. I feel like that everything starts there, getting my mind, my body right, and from there, just kind of keep building on and to be able to do my best next year.
Yeah, because we know you have a squad there. The confidence has to be so high for what you guys can do next year, right?
Yeah, and like just say, I feel like we all love where we are right now. We have such a unique team in the way that we build, and I just feel like we're gonna be a tough team. We're gonna be a tough team, and I'm excited to see that.
It's hard to believe that it was only year 3 for you that just wrapped up. We were just talking off camera. My 3-year-old only wants to wear your jersey to preschool. I'm sure he's not alone in that. What does it mean to you in 3 short years? You've had the many more things to come, of course, but you've had the impact so far that you have had in 3 short years here in Seattle.
I'm excited. I'm so, like I said earlier, I'm so blessed and grateful to be able to, inspire and like motivate so many people, and like have little kids running around my jersey. That's something that I've never really thought when I was in Loma de Cabrera, just like with a dream. And I feel like being able to see all those things, I feel it really fills me with a lot of joy, and like motivates me to continue to keep going, to keep doing the right thing, to just keep motivating people and generations.
Julio Rodriguez, we can't wait to see you in March, my friend. So good to see you, man.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Take care.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm going to want to point out something there that really stood out to me. The way Julio says, the generosity of people in Seattle, it motivates him to be even better next year. I mean, again, we talk about how special this guy is. Yeah, I mean, just look no further than that response right there.
It struck me watching that the two of you there, how relaxed and comfortable he felt.
Sure.
There in his skin. That was kind of a different side of Julio that I saw there.
Yeah, I appreciate you noticing that. Like I mentioned some of those stories at the top of this show. We go back 3 years, but no, it's been a really cool relationship in that regard. I remember when he signed the big extension in the middle of his rookie year, I was one of the only people there, at least from the TV side of things, and just slowly but surely built this cool relationship that, like, when he comes out of the dugout for BP, not every day because I don't want to bug the guy, but I'm like, hey, here's Dario today, my little boy, and it's been a cool and special relationship with many more years, hopefully, for both of us to come here in Seattle.
Well, I apologize if I was laughing during the interview, Niko.
Well, I
because,
saw Bill's bottom line.
Bill Fesh had the ticker there with Niko and Julio down by the schoolyard.
Thanks, Bill.
You'll never forget that song now.
Well, now I got to Google it. I still don't know what the heck it is. I got to Google it. I'm not that young, guys. I'm 40 in a few months.
Well, I will say, Julio has this great connection now for the Mariners in the Dominican Republic that I think has been revived. It's now re-energized, I should say, given the recent past great history with the organization, with the DR. You and I have talked about this at length off camera and off the mic. Then the Mariners have an academy there where they bring in young people, and not only are they training, they're also going to school every day. And he was mentioning his hometown, Loma de Cabrera. It's not far from the Haitian border. I was in that area, that part of the Dominican Republic, several years ago with Nelson Cruz, Las Matas de Santa Cruz, which was about 20 miles from the Haitian border. Loma de Cabrera is even closer, and you get a chance to go out into the countryside, away from the big city, Santo Domingo in the Dominican Republic, and you can see just how important baseball is in that country. That is the way out for a lot of kids when they're 10, 11, 12, 13 years old. Julio has talked about that before. You just talked about his hometown there with you a couple of times. There's a lot of kids that are growing up thinking, I need to make it to the major leagues to basically provide for my family. Right. Nelson Cruz went back there for years, took a bunch of Seattle Fire gear back to his fire department in that small town because they couldn't pay for it. He would often give away things that he accumulated in his Major League Baseball career to his small town, and you can see just how much it means. That it is not only a way of life there for a lot of kids playing baseball, it's the way to build a bigger life. And I think that's why we see people like Julio Rodriguez come back in the off season and give back to the community, is because they're doing that. We don't think about professional athletes of his magnitude and his salary doing that in their communities, but that is happening every day.
And kudos to the Mariners for the work they've done. Like you mentioned, the academy and everything like that. Just a really cool way to wrap this show up all around. All positive, great superstars doing some awesome things for their home country. And Julio's got more things to come. Gosh, I can't wait for spring training.
And we've got more things to come.
We do.
We've officially knocked out 25 weeks. And I would highly encourage people to listen to the last episode involving Beth Knox from the Seattle Sports Commission. She had a lot of interesting nuggets in the what is happening behind the scenes in Seattle in the world of sports. The Sports Star of the Year event. She announced a big thing involving that, but she did it on our show. And then Joy Hollingsworth, Donald Watts, Kenny Mayne, Lenny Wilkins, Damon Heward. We talked about a secret Sonic stash. Fox Sports Network's Bob Thompson. We've talked a lot about the World Cup, women's sports, off the pitch, Sounders reign. We've done a lot.
More to come, my friend.
And David Lee can take us out.
You've been listening to Inside the Arena with Niko and Chris. Please subscribe on your favorite platform. Until next time.